welcome to Reiki Banashi, a podcast where we talk about Reiki in a simple way. I'm Inina. I'm a practitioner and teacher of traditional Japanese Reiki. And in this space, I offer you reflections and shared moments. Today, we have the pleasure of welcoming Reiko Nonaka. Reiko is a Shihan teacher of Jikiden Reiki, as well as a master of Western style of Reiki. She is Japanese and has been living in Paris for about 20 years now. She started teaching Reiki in 2020, first in Japan, and then felt the need to introduce the original Japanese Reiki, which was not yet well known in France. And this led her to start her Reiki activities in 2022 with the aim of teaching Japanese Reiki in France. She is both a Reiki practitioner and teacher, but she also has other healing-related activities, such as sound healing and Arcturus quantum healing. She also integrates coaching with energy healing. Reiko teaches Reiki, offers treatments, and provides guidance in both France and Japan. And it's truly fascinating to exchange with her, as she deeply understands these two very different cultures, navigating between them and bringing her unique, captivating energy. She organizes seminars, workshops, and introductory Reiki sessions in Paris. And she also gives public lectures to explain the origins of Japanese Reiki and its various branches. They are a rare opportunity to receive authentic Reiki sessions or training from a Japanese master teacher. So I'm delighted to share this conversation with her. So make yourself comfortable and let's get started. Okay. Konnichiwa, yokoso Reiko-san. Welcome to Reiki Banashi. I'm super happy that you accepted to come and talk with us here. So, we met in Paris more than a year ago, right? Yes, it's already been a year and a half, I think. A year and a half. Wow. O genki desu ka? How are you today? Genki. Yes, I'm doing well. Just before we go into details, I was thinking earlier, you know, your name, Reiko, it's quite close to the word Reiki. So do they have the same root? Because in Japanese, we read with the kanji, the ideograms. Yeah, so the kanji is different from Reiki. My name uses another kanji. It's the meaning is clear sound. But even though it's not the same kanji, each time re and I have a meaning. So there is something similar with Reiki. That's why in French sometimes people call me Reiki. Yeah, it's true. Reiki, Reiko, it's very close. It's good for me. Yes, that's true, because in Japanese, ko is often added to female names, right? Yes. So I wondered, Reiki sounds like Reiko, Reiko sounds like Reiki. All right, so clear sound. Yes, clear sound. It's actually somewhat close to the energy of Reiki in a way. Yes, that's right, clarity. Clarity is good. Yes, I really like my name. Okay, so to start, could you tell us about your journey with Reiki? How did you discover Reiki and what drew you into this practice? Yes. So actually, originally, I'm a photographer and artist, but it was because of my mother. She had a serious cancer. And from that point, I became interested in healing these kind of things. My mother was really sick, and there was no solution to heal her with Western medicine. So I searched for what I could do for her. And then I met a friend who practiced Reiki. I didn't know about Reiki at the time. But what's great about Reiki is that once you are initiated, you can practice right away. My mother didn't have much time left to live. She didn't have much time left, so I was in a hurry. Of course. So once I was initiated, I could practice. Yes, right away. Yes, exactly. But I really wanted to try. This hope of mine. And that's how I started right away. But once I started practicing Reiki, it truly opened up a world I never known before. I was someone who was already quite sensitive to energy, and my sensitivity became clearer and clearer, more and more. And then I discovered many things through Reiki. At first, I started just as a healing technique to improve my mother's health. But I practiced a lot for my mother. And through that, I was the one who became purified. I realized that I really needed to purify myself, to find myself again. Yeah, to find yourself, to recenter yourself. Yes, it's true. For those who don't know, when we do Reiki on someone, we also receive it. It flows through us. Yes, that's what's great about Reiki. Even when we treat someone else, we can receive the energy at the same time, so both people benefit from it. I didn't really know this, but by practicing a lot, it brought me so much. My channel was purified, and through that, my way of seeing the world, my way of living, and even my artistic activities started to go well. But yeah, for me, it was a gift. Yes, a gift from the universe. Yes, and that's what fascinated me. And then, a year later, my father also got cancer. But at that moment, I already had Reiki, so I initiated my whole family. And we practiced Reiki together on my mother, my father, my aunt, and so on. It was a truly deep experience. Yes, I imagine it must have been a moment of unity for you all. Yes, a deep connection, an intimacy that even with language we couldn't really communicate. Yes, with words it's not enough. Yes, something very profound. But with Reiki and energy we could understand each other. And that was really a magnificent experience, truly. Wow, so all this learning, this deepening, this connection with your family, you experienced it in Japan then? Well, I was already living in France. I have been living here for 20 years. But for my mother and father, I often returned to Japan. So once I traveled back, I stayed in Japan for a few months. I always went back and forth like that, staying close to my family. And so you started treating your mother, and it resonated with her so much that she also wanted to do Reiki. And then after that, she practiced Reiki with you, right? Yes, that's right. Speaking of these experiences, is there a significant experience with Reiki, whether with someone else or yourself, apart from everything that you've already shared, that you'd like to tell us about? Yes, maybe I've already mentioned this, but the family bond became really strong. We were very, very connected. We were already very close, but deeply we could feel something. And, you know, accompanying the end of life was truly a beautiful experience as well. I understood that leaving this world is just as beautiful as the experience of birth. Life is something that can be sad sometimes and sometimes painful, but through that I understood many, many things. I don't really know how to put that into words. Yes, I imagine it deepens everything. So for me, death is not something negative. It's like moving to another world. In Japan, we always think this way. Reincarnation is very important. So this is just a period where we are on Earth. But our soul's learning continues. I truly understood this. And so after my parents passed away, I had a deep desire to share this experience through Reiki. And that's how I decided to teach Reiki. Yeah, so it was really an impactful experience in your life, this passage between life and the other world. Because in the end it's just a passage, but with Reiki it must have been something truly profound. Oh, my life also changed a lot. As an artist, I was quite stressed about developing my career in France. But once I started doing Reiki, my way of living completely changed. Like kyo dake wa, which means just for today. I live in the present moment. Like with my mother, she was in front of me, but we didn't know how long that would last. So I really tried to cherish that time with my mother and then with my father. And through that, I learned how to truly live in the moment. From that point on, my life started to change and improve. I don't really know how to explain it. Yes, I imagine it's a complete shift, a 360-degree change. It's not just about using your hands. It's an entire philosophy of life. Yes, a way of life. And beyond that, it's about understanding the truth of the universe. That kind of things. It wasn't intellectual, it wasn't something logical. When you can feel it with your heart and your body, with your sensitivity, that's something that's hard to explain with words. No, but I think we understand. It's exactly that. It's a deep transformation and a return to what really matters, the essential, the present moment, being able to see it as a gift. Yes, that's it. And so all this led you to teaching as well, because once you experienced it, that's one thing, but I imagine you also wanted to pass it on to others. So you teach both Jikiden Reiki, traditional Japanese Reiki, and Western style Reiki. You navigate between the two. Maybe you can explain in what context you teach one and in what context you teach the other. Yes, maybe. As I started Western Reiki in Japan, no, I started in France, Reiki first here, so Western Reiki. But later, when I returned to Japan, I started searching for the most effective method for serious illnesses. That's how I found Jikiden Reiki. So in Japan, I learned Jikiden. It's not, it's not that it's the best, or I think every form of Reiki has its good aspects. And I just wanted to try both. Because traditional Reiki, its origins are important and essential. But it belongs also to another era, so it's not always entirely adapted to modern times. Meanwhile, Western Reiki evolved after the war. It fits well with today's world. There are aspects of it that really need to be deepened too. And we don't have the same mindset as in Usui Sensei's time nowadays, for example. So I think the two approaches are very, really complementary, which is why I teach both. But I explain the difference to my students, of course. But I've noticed that French students are often more interested in Jikiden Reiki because it's very traditional, very deeply Japanese, while my Japanese students living in Japan are more drawn to Western Reiki. Oh, it's really interesting. Maybe we seek something we don't already have within us. Yes, maybe that's it, but it's fascinating. And it's very interesting to see that, as you said, there's an attraction to a culture that isn't necessarily the one we live in. So when you go back to Japan, I imagine there's more demand for you to teach Western style Reiki. Is that right? Yes, that's right. I mean, I teach both, but it tends to be like that. And speaking of cultures and how modernity is integrated into each approach, I think it's great that you highlight that there's always something positive to take from both. There's no absolute right or wrong. Often people take very strong stances on this, so I find it really valuable that you offer both perspectives. So you've been living in Paris for about 20 years now. Can you share what it was like to adapt to a new culture when you first arrived? What aspects were easy for you and what were more challenging? Yes, it's already been 20 years, so maybe I've forgotten some things, but it was interesting here. Here is that I felt like people live to have fun. In Japan, we are very serious, we work a lot, and that's a good thing. But we've somewhat forgotten how to enjoy life. For me, the French, they leave for their vacations. That's something I really liked. And there's a great sense of freedom. There are rules, but people don't seem to care too much about them. This freedom was surprising for me. In Japan, everything is very structured, very rigid, but here it's freedom. And yet, when I first arrived, I found myself with so much freedom. I felt a bit lost. I didn't know how to use it. So at the beginning, it was difficult to live so freely, but now it's fine. I enjoy it. Yeah, I can imagine. It's a big change to go from a Japanese environment with so many rules, where everything is respected, where no one will steal your phone if you leave it on a table and then come back. And then all this movement in Paris. It's not just about France, we're talking about a major city like Paris too. On the other hand, I learned that you really have to express yourself. In Japan, we talk, of course we talk, but it's not about me. In Japanese, since I'm also a Japanese teacher, we don't say watashi, which means I or me. We don't say me. It's always more about we. But here it's me. And if I don't speak, I don't exist. So at the beginning of my stay here, when I arrived, a French friend told me, Reiko, you have to express yourself in front of others, otherwise you're not really there. So I had to speak, but for me, focusing on me didn't feel right. Yes, it's not natural, right? I was quite discreet, but I eventually understood, even through French, that wasn't my language, it wasn't easy for me at the time. But I had to try. And as an artist, I tried to express myself through photography and other forms of art. And I realized that speaking was really necessary, something that isn't always the case in Japan. Right, I see. So it was kind of a learning process that went a bit against your cultural habits, not really putting yourself forward. In Japan, we're more discreet. You let others go first. So creating your own place must have been a real learning experience for you in France, right? Yes, exactly, a real learning experience. That must be interesting since you teach both in France and Japan. That's a clear cultural difference between the two in terms of approach to life and also healing. What are the main differences you've noticed when teaching or giving treatments in Japan versus France? Maybe we can start with Japan. With Japan, okay. So just like I struggled to adapt to life here, it's the same in Japan. People have difficulty expressing themselves. Even if they feel something deeply, they tend to hide it. They suppress their emotions until everything builds up and eventually explodes in forms of illnesses, for example. That's a big issue in Japan today. Yeah. Did you notice that a lot when people come to your treatments or classes? Yeah. And there are so many rules. I feel like all Japanese people, I mean, not just Japanese people, of course, but we wear kind of a societal helmet. They don't even realize that they have it on. So I tell them, this is the helmet of Japanese society. The helmet wouldn't work in France, for example. It doesn't exist here. First, they need to realize they are wearing this helmet, which has nothing to do with their inner selves. Then they should try to listen to their inner voice. Sometimes we need this helmet to adapt to society, but we should also know when to take it off. That's what I always try to tell my Japanese students and clients. Yeah, I imagine that's very present in Japan. Every culture has its own structure, but in Japan there's this expectation of perfection. And yeah, I suppose you've seen this firsthand in people who aren't doing well and who come to you for guidance. Yes, it's about helping them free themselves from certain things that might come from their upbringing. After the war, the Japanese lost a lot of self-confidence. It's quite the opposite here in France, where there's strong individualism, me, me, me. But in reality, the Japanese also need some of that. The two cultures are complete opposites, yet I've always felt that France and Japan complement each other. There are many similarities, but they can also fill in each other's gaps. Yeah, so we talked about what tends to come up with people seeking healing in Japan. But in France, have you noticed recurring themes? You mentioned the strong focus on the me, me, me. But have you seen anything else that stands out? Maybe something that could benefit from the Japanese perspective? Yes, maybe because of the Christian upbringing, there's this idea of only one God. I don't know why, but even though people here say me, 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 it's like they don't really trust themselves or their own abilities, their capacities. They tend to cling to someone external, like a god, for example. But in Japan, animism has always been part of our culture. We live in harmony with nature. There are many, many gods everywhere in nature. So we have this awareness of coexisting with them rather than clinging to a single god. That's a really big difference. Yeah, something external to rely on. Yes, something external. And they really use their heads. The Western mind is incredibly intellectual. That was surprising for me. They need explanations and logic for everything. Even with Reiki, which is something subtle, something you can't fully explain. Right, it's hard to explain. Like we mentioned earlier, it's hard to put it into words. Yeah, Reiki is really about sensing, feeling, not about intellectualizing. For Western minds, it takes a lot of effort to reconnect with that essence, to move from thinking to sensing and feeling. It's a big challenge for people who are completely disconnected from their feelings and sensing. Before I started practicing Reiki, I was quite intellectual too. I thought a lot, analyzed everything, but once I started Reiki, I realized that there was something invisible, universal energy that enters the body and works automatically. I don't know how it happens, but I understand it with my body, with my sensitivity. There's no logical explanation. Yet I completely understand how it works within the universal system. I hope French people can understand that too, either through experience or just through life itself. Life teaches us. It's not spiritual, woo woo. And through that, maybe they can grasp some spiritual truth. But I still don't know how to fully convey these things for French and in French. I might need to find better ways to explain them in the language. Beyond explanations, I think just creating a space where people can feel and experience it is already a huge step. And you already do that, like, your live sessions on Instagram, where people can connect with your energy. That alone is an open door, you don't think? Yeah. Yeah, I also use sound, like singing bowls, crystal bowls, and other instruments. Because some people don't really understand energy or aren't very sensitive to it. But with sound, they can feel it. Sound is a tool that helps people sense something invisible. Yeah, it's a great way to introduce them to the world of energy. Frequencies are powerful with sound. After all, we communicate and exist through sound. So sounds speak. Yeah, there's no explanations, but people can truly feel it through sound. That's what's so great about it. And I also find it super interesting that you mentioned the background of Japanese animism. Really, the aspect where in Japanese culture you're never truly alone. It's as if there's always this sense of being in a shared space together. There are the presences of the wind, the spirits of the forest. There's always something around us. So it's as if you always have some kind of help that is present. Maybe in French culture, well, I'm in Italy, so it's even so stronger. The religious background is more present. Even if the people who come to my sessions aren't practicing religiously, you can still feel that background. So it's really interesting to see that aspect. It's like there's only one way of seeing things, or only one thing that has to be explainable, And I feel like people have more difficulty trusting. I don't know if you feel that in France too. Trust. Yeah, trust in things. Maybe they get caught up in something not negative, but very, in the mind. Yes, that's it. In Japan, it's really about the spirit of harmonization. It's not necessarily something you see with your eyes. You respect the gods, but it's not necessarily visible to everyone. It's not something that everyone feels. However, there's this deep feeling that we are part of the divine. Here it feels more separate. That's why I think there's this lack of trust. And even we say, we do gasho, and the hands together. It's really about bringing things together. Gasho is hands joined together, but it's also the spirit of unification, the harmony of yin and yang, femininity, masculinity. It's truly about that. Issa, this gesture, this gesture is important. And we connect with our inner selves through it. Here, there is maybe just one God, and everything is separate. But actually, we should be joining things together. Creating union. Yes, exactly. It's super interesting to see these cultural differences, especially in terms of healing and energy work. I imagine you feel them even more strongly through your practice. So you do Reiki, but you also offer coaching in your sessions. Can you tell us more about that? Yeah, so now I do coaching too, but coaching with healing. I specialize in healing. But for now, I focus on coaching for Japanese people. As we talked about earlier, I'm very proud to be Japanese. We really have something special. But the Japanese have lost some of their trust too. But when I started my Reiki activities in Japan, when I returned to Japan, someone asked me for this type of work, and that's how I started. I realized, okay, I'll start by working with the Japanese first because they've lost a bit of trust, but they have so much potential. Since Reiki was born in Japan, Japanese people really understand the deep aspects of it. That was truly a wonderful discovery. So I thought, okay, I'll start with the Japanese. And once they understand, well, it's not about learning, it's not about adding something new. They already have it inside them. And they realize, oh, we've had this within us all along. It's just activates. See, yeah, remembering. Yes, exactly, remembering. So my role was to help them remember. I'm not giving them an extraordinary abilities. They already have them deep inside. It's just about activating and bringing out their inner capacities. I love teaching Reiki, but also, sometimes a bit of guidance to help them a bit awaken some of these capacities, activate what is a bit asleep. And once they understand that, it bursts open. Yes, exactly. It wakes up. Yes, and seeing that really made me realize when I do coaching with Japanese people, I feel like there are other presences. I don't know who is guiding me, but it truly feels like a co-creation with other existence. I feel such deep gratitude. It's pure happiness. So I started this coaching 2 years ago, and it has become something very important to me. And I imagine it aligns perfectly with all the energy work, guiding people a bit, as you say. In the end, it's part of the role of a channel, right? Yes, it's truly a channel role, just like with Reiki. I'm a channel, and I always try to be a pure channel. If I remain pure, it flows through, and the other person also fills up with this energy. It circulates, it's flowing, and that's what creates total harmonization. And so you also use sound healing and Arcturus quantum healing in your sessions. Yes, I use Reiki, but also sound healing and Arcturus quantum healing. It's a bit different, but with that, it's not just about life coaching. It's energy work. And I give these sessions regularly. And because I lived in both Japan and France, I've experienced the difficulties of both cultures. I use that experience to help Japanese people awaken their senses and abilities. Yeah, so really an awakening of consciousness from both sides. You're truly a bridge between these two cultures, bringing the positive sides of each other. It's beautiful. A real role of channel, a canal. Yes, it's really a channel role. And I would love to start offering this coaching for French people too. I want to bring, the Japanese mind, our way of thinking, to the French people. I haven't started yet, but I'd love to. Oh, I'm sure that French culture and many people in France would really benefit from this approach to healing. I'm sure that as a channel and through energy, this will come to you. It's something truly interesting to be able to integrate both cultures. And it's also quite rare to have someone who can truly bring both sides together. Oh, you too. Multicultural. Yes, but I wasn't born in Japan. So for me, even though I have the origins and the culture deeply inside of me, it's very different from having been born there. So, when I go back to Japan, I'm not really considered completely Japanese. people who are half Japanese, we have a different experience. It's another very interesting perspective, though. So you also organize different events every month, workshops, trainings, seminars. I often see them on your Instagram. So you hold also sound bath workshops in Paris, right? Yes, in Paris. I give sessions in a wellness center and at my practice. And on weekends, sometimes I do Jikiden Reiki training. I also host Reiki practice gatherings about twice a month. And I offer also online sessions as well. We'll check all that out. I'll put the links in the episode show notes so that if anyone listening wants to connect with you, they'll have your website, Instagram, and so on. Okay, now we're slowly reaching the end of the episode, but I still have two small questions. One of them is a question that I ask all my guests on Reiki Banashi. If you could meet Mikao Usui Sensei today, what would you like to ask or tell him? So maybe he has already transmitted the essential truth, the spiritual truth, the truth of the universe. But if there was something he could tell us in our present time, what would it be? Yeah, that's it. Because what we do with Jikiden Reiki, it's from Usui Sensei's era. But now, in our own era, maybe is there something else he would maybe add? That's something I often wonder about. Oh, that's really interesting. If he were still here, what he would have adapted, maybe. Yeah. Yes, in relation to our society today, yes. Yes, that's a great question. It would be fascinating to know his answer. Oh, maybe through channeling we could ask him. Yeah, maybe somebody could do that for us. Reiko-san, is there anything we haven't talked about that you would like to share with us? Yes, so you already know the word arigato, which means thank you. But actually, this word has a much deeper meaning. Originally, it wasn't arigato, but arigatashi, which means difficult to realize. It refers to something that was hard to achieve, but was realized nonetheless. So it's about acknowledging that we were lucky to have received this realization. And the sound of arigato, the vowels in it, hold a lot of energy. As we are part of the divine, and we must remember that we are connected to the divine. But when we go inward, we can connect to it and to God's. So by saying arigato, we remember that. It's not just about the gods, it's for everyone, everything, because we are like the gods, we are divine. So I truly encourage you to use arigato. Yes, arigato, Reiko-san. In Japanese, the sound is very important, and every word has its sound and its energy. So I really advise you to use arigato. And exactly so, arigato, Reiko-san. So that's very interesting. I had a lot of versions around this arigato for the, the commercial era with Portuguese, with obrigado, but I didn't know this side of arigatashi. So thank you for that. That's very truly interesting. Okay, so we've come to the end of this episode. Thank you for this moment of sharing together. It was really interesting to hear about your experience and to explore the cultural aspects within the challenges in healing. For me as well, it brought some illumination, especially through speaking with someone who truly understands both cultures. It helped me maybe put into words some of my more abstract feelings, things that are sometimes difficult to express. So truly a huge thank you for that. I really enjoy sharing these kind of things with you. And it makes me happy, truly. Thank you. Before we go, if someone wants to find you, learn about your work or contact you, what's the best way to reach you? Through Instagram, maybe? Yes, Instagram. And I also have several websites. You can always send me a mail. Yeah, it makes me happy if you reach me out. Instagram and also Facebook. Okay, so I'll include the links and how to contact you in the notes in case someone wants to reach out to you and get more information. So that way we can still stay connected in this arigato. Oh, and I'd love to come to Sardinia this year too. Yeah. Thank you so much. All the best. And arigatou gozaimashita. Arigatou gozaimasu. Thank you for listening. And once again, a big thank you to Reiko. It's such a joy to share these moments with you. And if you'd like to continue exploring these topics with me, you can find me on Instagram or on my website. And if you want to go deeper or learn more, all the links are in the show notes. See you soon for a new episode, and in the meantime, take care. Arigatou gozaimashita.